Swedish. So, and the second book I have in English. So, yeah, I thought I would be reading some of it. I have started reading it, as you can see. Here's a bookmark. So, I will not start from the beginning, but I hope that's okay. I will do some normal reading, and then I'm gonna do some inaudible whispering, because I do know a lot of you guys like that. Personally, I do like that myself a lot when I listen to ASMR artist that does this reading videos. And I do want to apologize for my nails. They're looking kind of rough. I am gonna get them done soon again. But yeah, so let's get started. So I'm on the chapter 15, and this chapter says Atlas. So I am thinking that I might read the back, just for those of you who isn't familiar with this book, or the series of this book, or the characters and stuff. I did talk about this book when I did my tapping on books and scratching on books, but if you have not seen that, I could just quickly read the back of the book, so you get a kind of like a little, so you know a bit what it's about and the characters' names and stuff. So before it ends with us, it started with Atlas. Lily and Riley have just settled into a civil co-parenting rhythm with their daughter, Emerson, when Lily suddenly runs into Atlas nearly 2 years after they last spoke. Elated that the timing finally seems to be right, to give what they have together a real chance, Atlas asks Lily on a date. Told from the perspective of Lily and Atlas, It Starts With Us gives readers a deeper look into Atlas' past, as he and Lily reconnect and rekindle the love they shared as teenagers while navigating a volatile ex-husband who believes Atlas to be one of the reasons his marriage with Lily ended. It Starts With Us picks up right where the epilogue for It Ends With Us left off, giving readers the exhilarating sequel to Collins' best-selling phenomenon they have been begging for. So that's a little, so you know what it's about. So let's get started. When I was in the military, I was stationed with a friend who had family from Boston. His aunt and uncle were getting ready to retire and wanted to sell their restaurant. It was called Milla's, and when I visited it on leave one year, I absolutely fell in love with the place. I could say it was the food or the fact that it was located in Boston, but the truth is I fell in love with it because of the preserved tree growing in the center of the main dining room. The tree reminded me of Lily. If anything is going to remind someone of their first love, trees are probably the last thing you want as a reminder. They're everywhere, which is probably why I thought about Lily every day since I was 18. But that could also be because I still, to this day, feel like I owe her my life. I'm not sure if it was the tree or the fact that the restaurant came almost fully stocked and staffed, but I felt a pull to buy it when it came available. It wasn't my goal to own a restaurant right out of the military. I had planned to work as a presented itself. I couldn't walk away from the prospect. I used the money I saved up from my time as a Marine, and I secured a business loan, bought the restaurant, changed the name, and created a whole new menu. Sometimes I feel guilty for the success Bibbs has had, like I haven't had my dues. I didn't just inherit the staff who already knew what they were doing, but I inherited customers as well. I didn't build it from the ground up, which is why I feel a heavy amount of imposter syndrome when people congratulate me on the success of Bibbs. That's why I opened Corrigan's. I don't know that I was trying to prove anything to anyone other than myself, but I wanted to know that I could do it. I wanted the challenge of creating something from nothing and watching it flourish and grow, like what Lily wrote in her journal about why she liked growing things in her garden when we were teenagers. Maybe that's why I feel more protective of Corrigan's than I do over Bibbs, because I created it from nothing. That might also be the reason I put more effort into protecting it. Corrigan's has a working security system and is a hell of a lot harder to break into than Bibbs, which is why I chose to spend tonight at Bibbs, even though Corrigan's is due to be broken into if we're going by the rotating schedule this kid has developed. The first night was Bibbs, the second night was Corrigan's. He took a few days off, then the third and fourth incident were at Bibbs. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling he show up here again before going back to Corrigan's, simply because he had more success getting into the less secure of the two places. I just hope tonight isn't one of the nights he decides not to show up. He'll definitely show up here if he's hungry. Bibbs is his better bet for food, which is why I'm hiding on the far side of the dumpster waiting. I pulled over one of the tortured chairs the smokers use on their breaks, and I've been passing time by reading. Lily's words have kept me company a little too well, because there have been several times I've been so engrossed in this journal I forgot that I'm supposed to be on alert. I don't know for sure if the kid who was independent in my restaurant is the same kid who had the mama, which... Oh gosh, sorry. But the timing makes sense. The targeted insults that he's been spray painting make sense if it's coming from a kid who desperately despises me. I can't think of anyone as angry with me more than a boy who feels a bad box opera. It's almost moved to morning. I check security at but there's nothing new happening over there either. Go back to read your journal, even though the last couple of times I did a real but Amalia for Bosley Beckley. She was younger. In my mind at that age, I felt thinking alive. No, but she felt a bite like reading the letter she wrote back. A lot more difficult than I expected it to be. I thought it would be fun to read her thoughts, but when I started reading them, I remember how cruel our childhoods were to us. I don't think about it much anymore because I'm so far removed from the life I've lived back then. But then I'm being thrown back into those moments from every angle this week. It seems the information in the journal my mother fighting out. I have a brother. In office, everything I've tried running from has formed a slow leak that's threatening to sink me. But then there's Lily and her impatient time and being back in my life. She always seems to show up when I need a lifeline. experience it from her point of view, but I cannot know how I felt, how I left her feeling for all those years. I opened the last entry and picked up where I left off. He took my hands in his and told me he was leaving sooner than he planned for the military, but that he couldn't leave without telling me thank you. He told me he'd be gone for 4 years, and that the last thing he wanted for me was to be a 16-year-old girl not living my life because of a boyfriend I never got to see or hear from. The next thing he said, Lily, life is a funny thing. We only get so many years to live it, so we have to do everything we can to make sure those years are as full as they can be. We shouldn't waste time on things that might happen someday or maybe even never. I knew what he was saying, that he was leaving for the military and he didn't want me to hold on to him while he was gone. He wasn't really breaking up with me because we weren't ever really together. We just been two people who helped each other when we needed it and got our hearts fused together along the way. It was hard being let go by someone who had never really grabbed hold of me completely in the first place. In all the time we've spent together, I think we both sort of knew this wasn't a forever thing. I'm not sure why, because I could easily love him that way. I think maybe under normal circumstances, if we were together like typical teenagers, and he had an average life with a home, we could be that kind of couple. The kind who comes together so easily and never experience a life where cruelty sometimes interrupts. I didn't even try to get him to change his mind that night. I feel like we have the kind of connection that even the fires of hell couldn't sever. I feel like he could go spend his time in the military and I spent my years being a teenager, and then it will all fall back into place when the timing is right. I'm going to make a promise to you, he said. When my life is good enough for you to be a part of it, I'll come find you. But I don't want you to wait around for me, because that might never happen. I didn't like that promise because it meant one of two things. Either he thought he might never make it out of the military alive, or he didn't think his life would ever be good enough for me. His life was already good enough for me, but I nodded my head and forced a smile. If you don't come back for me, I'll come for you, and it won't be pretty. Atlas Corrigan. He laughed at my threat. Well, it won't be too hard to find me. You know exactly where I'll be. I smiled. Where everything is better. He smiled back. In Boston. And then he kissed me. Ellen, I know you're an adult and know all about what comes next, but I still don't feel comfortable telling you what happened over those next couple of hours. Let's just say we both kissed a lot, we both laughed a lot, we both loved a lot, we both breathed a lot, and we both had to cover our mouths and be as quiet and still as we could so we wouldn't get caught. When we were first finished, he held me against him, skin to skin, hand to heart. He kissed me and looked straight in my eyes. I love you, Lily. Everything you are, I love you. I know those words get thrown around a lot, especially by teenagers. A lot of times, prematurely and without much merit. But when he said them to me, I knew he wasn't saying it like he was in love with me. It wasn't that kind of I love you. Imagine all the people you met in your life. There are so many. They come in like waves, trickling in and out with the tide. Some waves are much bigger and make more of an impact than others. Sometimes the waves bring with them things from the deep in the bottom of the sea, and they leave those things tossed onto the shore, imprints against the grains of sand that prove the waves had once been there, long after the tide recedes. That was what Atlas was telling me when he said, I love you. He was letting me know that I was the big come across, and I brought so much with me that my impressions would always be there, even when the tide rolled out. After he said he loved me, he told me he had a birthday present for me. He pulled out a small brown bag. It wasn't much, but it's all I could afford. I opened the bag and pulled out the best present I ever received. It was a magnet that said Boston on the top. At the bottom, in a tiny letter, it said, "Where everything is better." I told him I would keep it forever, and every time I looked at it, I think of him. When I started out this letter, I said my 16th birthday was one of the best days of my life, because up until that second it was the next 2 minutes that weren't. Before Atlas had shown up that night, I wasn't expecting him, so I didn't think to lock my bedroom door. My father heard me in there talking to someone, and when he threw up the door and saw Atlas in bed with me, he was angrier than I'd ever seen him, and Atlas was at a disadvantage by not being prepared for what comes next. I'll never forget that moment as long as I live, being completely helpless as my father came down on him with the baseball bat. The sound of bone snapping was the only thing piercing through my screams. I still don't know who called the police. I'm sure it was my mother. But it's been 6 months and we still haven't talked about that night. By the time the police got to my bedroom and pulled my father off of him, I didn't even recognize Atlas. He was covered in so much blood. It was hysterical. Not only did they have to take Atlas away in an ambulance, they also had to call an ambulance for me because I couldn't breathe. It was the first and only panic attack I ever had. No one would tell me where he was or if he was even okay. My father wasn't even arrested for what he'd done. Word got out that Atlas had been staying in that old house and that he had been homeless. My father became revered for this heroic act, saving his little girl from the homeless boy who manipulated her into having sex with him. My father said I'd shamed our whole family by giving the town something to gossip about. And let me tell you, they still gossip about it. I heard Katie on the bus today telling someone she tried to warn me about Atlas. She said she knew he was bad news from the moment she laid eyes on him, which is crap. If Atlas had been on the bus with me, I probably would have kept my mouth shut and been mature about it, like he tried to teach me to be. Instead, I was so angry, I turned around and told Kaylee she could go to hell. I told Atlas was the better human than she'd ever be, and if I ever heard her say one more bad thing about him, she'd regret it. She just rolled her eyes and said, "Jesus, Lily, did he brainwash you? He was a dirty, thieving, homeless kid who was probably on drugs. He used you for food and sex, and now you're defending him." She's lucky the bus stopped at my house right then. I grabbed my backpack and walked off the bus, and then went inside and cried in my room for 3 hours straight. Now my head hurts, but I knew the only thing that would make me feel better is if I finally got it all out on paper. I've been avoiding writing this letter for 6 months now. No offense, Ellen, but my head still hurts. So does my heart. Even more right now than it did yesterday. This letter didn't help one damn bit. I think I'm going to take a break from writing to you for a while. Writing to you reminds me of him, and it just all hurts too much. Until he comes back for me, I'm just going to keep pretending to be okay. I'll keep pretending to swim, when really all I'm doing is floating, barely keeping like to read more from this book, I surely will. If you enjoyed it, please let me know. Or if there's any other book you would like me to read, just let me know. But I hope you enjoyed this video and that you have a lovely day, lovely evening, lovely night,